Dynasty Nerds on Better Sports Network.
And good evening, nerds. How the heck are we doing on this fine Wednesday leading into a week 7? We got the first week of By-Mageddon this week. Some great things coming on the show. We're going to talk about, how are we going to deal with those buys and those teams being out. We got some injuries to deal with. We potentially have a quarterback working his way back into the lineup that a lot of people have been waiting for. We're going to do a little truth or scare with Mr. Peter Bartausky. Talk about some players that, are we buying them? Are they the truth? Or should we be scared? Are we going to, move away from them as time goes on? But in the interim, let's start to talk around. We'll talk about a little bit of the news that's going on. It's seems like it has been the most injury-prone season in quite some time. We pull up my notes here on the injuries and what we got going on. So Kyren Williams is going to be out for a few weeks, according to Jordan Rodriguez. He was seen using a scooter and had his ankle in a quote-unquote cast-like material. We'll talk about backfield quagmires a little later tonight, and certainly the Los Angeles Rams are one of those quagmire backfields. What do we do? It is, hey, Better Boss, good to see you. With them signing Myles Gaskin and Royce Freeman, and Rivers went on IR. It's a looking good for Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, certainly. Kyler Murray, he's been activated. His window to be returned to the team has started. They have 3 weeks, and at the end of the 3 weeks, they decide, is he out the rest of the year or is he back on the field? Kyler wants to play. We've seen that. He's been talking up his return, getting ready. I know Josh Dobbs has played valiantly, but they still are 1-5. James Conner's down. It's not the greatest situation what's going on there for first-year head coach Jonathan Gannon. James Conner was great for fantasy, but now he's out. It was supposed to be Imari DiMercato week last week, but that didn't quite go like we expected. Despite him playing the most snaps, he had the fewest touches of all of their running backs. DK Metcalf didn't practice today. We're looking for at least limiteds the next couple days to get him back out on the field. Tyler Lockett's been dealing with a hamstring injury, but he hasn't missed any games yet. That could bode well for one Jackson Smith and Jigba. And if DK's out too, maybe even Jake Bobo. In Dynasty leagues, Bobo may still be available because he was a very unheralded prospect. Hey, Josh, good to see you. But it was great to see last week. JSN caught 4 passes for 48 yards, a whopping 12-yard ADOT. It was good enough to increase his ADOT from 2.6 yards to 3.7 yards on the season. Let's keep that going. I know that DK is a deep threat and Tyler Lockett's a deep threat, but JSN can get down the field a little bit too. There's no reason to throw him everything at the line of scrimmage. Justin Fields didn't participate. How tough do you have to be to dislocate your thumb, pop it back into place, and then still try to go back in the game? I don't know. He couldn't grip the ball, so we got to see Tyson Bagent. Bagent has been a waiver wire guy this week. Very prolific passer in college. Threw for over 9,000 yards his last 2 seasons. Now it was at Division II Shepherd College. So much like Donald Parham, one of my faves, 1,400-yard season at Stetson. Take that for what it's worth. A lot of the skills will translate. We'll see if Badgett gets the start, how he holds up over the course of a full 60-minute game with having been in the starter slot for the entire game planning process. So that'll certainly be something to watch. Trevor Lawrence is officially questionable for tomorrow. He's not really practicing. Something to certainly keep an eye on. I feel a lot better about Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram and Calvin Ridley and even Travis Etienne with Lawrence under center. But certainly you don't want him out there if he's hurting the team as opposed to helping them. Deontay Johnson, he was a full participant in Wednesday's practice. Saddle up. Unfortunately, I didn't trade him away. I was in negotiations and ended up being able to swap out Deontay Johnson for Joe Mixon and acquired Nico Collins. I'm not sure I believe in Nico just yet. He's having a great year. Looking forward to see what comes to pass. If C.J. Stroud can keep it up, start getting in the end zone. Got two of their best offensive linemen back last week in Titus Howard and Laramie Tunsil. So that should help. We'll see if it helps the running game with Dameon Pierce. Does not seem to be a great fit for the wide zone run scheme that set Devin Singletary off a little bit last weekend. So Devonta Smith did not practice Wednesday. We're going to talk about Devonta Smith in Truth or Scare. I like Smith, but it seems like Jalen Hurts has regressed just a little bit in the passing game and has not been quite as consistent. I like Hurts a lot. Love Smith. Love A.J. Brown. But it seems like this season they're not able to get Goddard, Smith, and Brown all involved at a high level for fantasy. And more often than not, it's seeming like either Smith or Goddard are the odd man out. Let's see him pick that up, especially in Dynasty. They're both young. A.J. Brown's, I think, a touch older. Goddard is older than all three or both of them. But tight ends last long. Wide receivers last long. A.J. is playing on a knee that's a couple knees that have had some surgeries. So there's always some concern there. But he seems to manage it well and shows up big on game days. Skinny Batman. Just give him the targets. He'll make something happen. Greg Dulcich was out. He's a low-end tight end. It just hasn't come to fruition in Denver yet. So as far as Dulcich goes, he's riding the pine. Ramondre Stevenson was limited in practice Wednesday. Stevenson just has not gotten off the mat. He's had a couple of good games, no big games. We want to see Stevenson get the ball, especially if Mac Jones is struggling. There's no need to give Zeke Elliott. I love Zeke Elliott. He's one of my guys from Ohio State. But there's no need to give him 15 carries in a game or 12 carries in a game or even 10 carries in a game. Let Ramondre handle that load. Let Zeke fill in a couple plays here and there, but he doesn't need to be getting a whole bunch of series over the course of a game. And then on to Detroit, Jahmyr Gibbs was limited in practice with a hamstring. It was just a walkthrough to start the week. So we'll see how it goes. Gibbs has not lived up to his billing in year one. I love Gibbs. Maybe it's a time to try to aim low and see if you can get him at a reasonable price. Gibbs is he's a dynamic back, great with the ball in his hands, good pass catcher. I have reservations about him running on the inside, much like I do with Travis Etienne, who's a bigger back, but Etienne doesn't have great vision. But Etienne has knocked it out of the park this year. He is having a fantastic year. So we're going to have Peter Bartausky joining us here in a couple minutes. you know Pete from if you've been in the Discord, Pete and I do Trade Talk Tuesdays. Over the summer, we did that to help you get ready for the season. Pete runs our social media, our film room, does all kinds of stuff behind the scenes at Dynasty Nerds, and is a fantastic fantasy football player in his own right. Before we bring Peter in, I just want to let you know. So, Dynasty Nerd Show, we're built on the Dynasty GM. If you haven't tried the Dynasty GM, it's your one-stop shop for managing your, got to rock the brown shirt every now and again there, Edward. The Dynasty GM is your one-stop shop for managing your Dynasty teams across multiple platforms. It syncs with FFPC leagues, sleeper leagues, flea flicker leagues. We're working on some of the other larger platforms to get them integrated. We have a mini releasing on the sleeper platform coming up soon. I've seen some previews of it. That looks super exciting. So get out there, get the Dynasty GM, mix it with the Nerd Herd bundle. It's an excellent value. You'll get things like the film room, the nerd scores. But in the Dynasty GM, you get to see how your team stacks up against everybody else in your league. Just a phenomenal tool. So we'll get Peter in here. I hear he's backstage. Oh, there he is. No,
there I am. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Please tell me. Okay, good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. There's a little delay between your mouth and the sound, but I can't hear you.
Oh man, that's a bummer.
Yeah. Well, we'll just imagine you're in some exotic location.
Yeah, pretty exotic.
How you doing this evening, Peter?
I'm doing pretty good. I am just checking I'm gonna do this. See if that fixes my audio. But yeah, I can see that. It's a little bit delayed. I'm doing really good. It's been a pretty good season of football so far. I just love football overall. But overall, most of my leagues that I'm trying to do good in, I'm doing good in. So I can't complain too much there. So overall, pretty great.
Yeah, I have a lot of rebuilds this year. You know, I had two undefeated teams going into last week. One of them lost by 0.64 points, and the other one got beat by a very lowly status team. They were last place team, and my team just didn't show up last week. It happens.
Oh man.
So,
oh man.
You ready for some?
Could I ask you this, Dennis?
You can ask.
Has this year so far changed your thoughts on rookie tight ends, or are they still the same?
It's brought me around to. For rookie tight ends, I am looking for an elite athletic profile. So, for instance, I still wouldn't have been in on any of the tight ends from this year's class. I don't think Kincaid is an elite athletic profile. He's a very good, but to me, Kyle Pitts is an elite athletic profile. So okay. I would be in on Pitts. I wouldn't have been in on Musgrave in the first couple of rounds. I wouldn't have been in on Laporta unless it was just a situation where, if late second and I just didn't like anybody else. Now this draft wasn't quite as deep as I think we thought it was going to be last year. Well, it is what it is, Josh. You got to embrace it. But I'm coming around. Like we just did, we just finished up a mock draft that's going to be released over at Dynasty Nerds, and I had the 111.
Okay.
Now I didn't draft a tight end, but Bowers wasn't there. But I did draft one at 211, who was the second tight end off the board.
Was it Kate Stover?
Jatavian Sanders of Texas. Very good athlete, good speed. I was watching some tape in the film room of him, and he just very willing blocker. He looks like he's going to be a good two-way player. He has the willingness. He's getting in there and fighting, but he's a good athlete, has good speed, 6'4", 256 pounds. So, like, he's not short. A lot of these guys, like Bowers, is 6'3", 230, like super athlete. And so I can maybe get on board with Bowers. Bowers isn't going to be blocking a whole heck of a lot. So there's and I think that's the argument with Kincaid is, well, they're going to use Knox to block and Kincaid will be out in the slot a lot. So, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was wrong.
Well, I mean, I feel like you're kind of right though. If you would still be out in that process of these tight ends, I don't know. So that's the hard thing, right? Is where does athleticism end? And I mean, you look at Kelsey, for example. He's not the most insane athlete, but he's one of those tight ends, though, that either A, he's a really good route runner, or B, he just does whatever he wants and he just gets open. Like there's just that chemistry there. So you look at him, Laporta, I see that with him a little bit. And yeah, Laporta's would you call him kind of on the same scale physically as like a George Kittle?
Yeah, I think so. So
it's kind of the same helmet a little bit, but
I think what I'm looking at, like with Kelsey, he isn't real fast, and he's faster than the majority of the tight ends, but he isn't like Kyle Pitts fast or Evan Ingram fast. But what he's a guy. What I'm looking for from a tight end, I think, is the three cone. Are they good at changing directions? Because that's how Kelsey gets open.
Yeah,
is his change of direction. He doesn't outrun a lot of people to get open, unless they put a slow middle linebacker on him or something. Then he can outrun him. He's got decent speed, but it's the change of direction that gets him open. And when he starts to improvise, that's what it is. It's, I'm going to go left. Now I'm right. Now I'm back left again. Oh, fake to the right. Now I'm still going left.
Yeah.
He's just, it's like a giant version of Tyreek Hill. And when it comes to the change of direction,
I can see that.
I don't know. So I'm having to, I think if you want to continue to get good at something, you have to deep dive into like how you got to a certain conclusion. And when you see evidence to the contrary, figure out like what was the 1, 2, 3, 10 things that poked a hole in your theory.
Yeah.
So, my theory was, well, I'm just going to wait because it takes time for them to develop as a tight end. It takes still takes 2 or 3 years because they have to learn the blocking schemes and the receiving schemes. And so that was my reasoning is let me see it. And just all I need to see is a few flashes when they're not getting a ton of playing time to let them develop. It used to be until Odell Beckham came along that we were perfectly happy waiting for year 2 or year 3 for a wide receiver to break out.
Yeah, the Quentin Johnston timeline.
Yeah. Well, and even then you see, I don't know if you saw it out there, I think Monday or Tuesday, there was a tweet out there that said of, people with his receivers with his draft capital that had 50 yards or less than 50 yards in their first 6 games. None of them, I don't remember who they were, but none of them panned out. They were they did not even had like a DJ Chark kind of one good season. So they didn't pan out. So I'm a little nervous about my Quentin Johnston shares now. Is he going to be an outlier compared to those guys? I mean, Jordan Palmer's been kind of just hogging up all the extra targets.
Yeah, I think what you're kind of hoping for with the Quentin Johnston path is Nico Collins, right? Because Nico is kind of this bigger, more physical, more of less of a separation kind of player. And sometimes like players with that archetype, I think, take a little bit longer to really dominate in the NFL because they're not used to playing against NFL athletes, and if you're 50-50 catcher going up against future gym teachers of America, it's a lot different. So it's a lot to learn. And but you look at separation and
Great. Now
more
the gym
metrics like
teachers are
that.
logging off, Peter, good job.
Yeah. What?
I said now the gym teachers are logging off. Good
Oh
job.
man. Yep. Sorry. Big demographic here.
Now, I like Collins and what he's doing this year. My concern with him is it just because they don't have anybody there? Is that why he's getting the opportunity? They've got a rookie quarterback. They don't have a stud receiver. We're just going to put it's like and it's not a perfect
Thanks, Josh.
1-to-1 comparison, but is it like a Terrell Pryor season where the Browns didn't have anybody else, so he just got 1,000 yards by chance? Is that what we're getting out of Nico Collins?
Well, let me just say this. He decided to go to the Redskins. So there's strike one. And didn't he get injured too? Pryor got injured a little bit.
He did.
So
he should have stayed with the Browns. To be honest, that's I get it. They weren't good, but
yeah, I think for me, I've seen plenty of. I mean, for example, how many times has Josh Palmer been the only wide receiver on the Chargers? And he's been like wide receiver 30 most of the time, So I think there is an element to opportunity. And I think opportunity with fantasy points, I pay attention to it less when it has to do with running back. Obviously, because you get players like Zach Moss. Zach Moss isn't going to be a viable dynasty asset 2-3 years from now. Maybe. Who knows? I wouldn't be saying this about it 2-3 years ago. So, but it's just, you look at what he is doing with that opportunity, and I think that he's still 24, right? Let me look that up.
Well, I think so.
Yeah.
It's in. What is he? He's just in his third year.
Yeah, 24. So he has the size. Also, the Texans don't really have that much draft capital. So they aren't going to be spending a high pick. I mean, maybe a second, but I still think with what this wide receiver core has been showing out, there's other holes on the Texans to be filled. So I don't know. I'm pretty confident that that this is an actual breakout and not just a Terrell Pryor season. But I'm also not quite willing to pay the price, if that makes sense. Like if I have him, Edward, I am using a D750 Nikon with a surprisingly $95 lens I got off at Amazon because I dropped my previous camera lens trying to put the lens cap on it and I broke it, which is very ironic. But D750, that's what I'm using. But I'm seeing a lot of rumors about top 12, top 15 dynasty wide receiver, and I'm still not quite there yet. But if I have him, I'm holding him. I'm not trying to sell or get him actively right now.
So if Collins is to be a top 15 receiver, is it going to be because CJ Stroud takes another step, or are we looking at, because there was a lot of the expectation, I think, for Stroud was that he was kind of a game manager guy.
Yeah.
But he's playing right now. He's not turning the ball over, and when he does, they fumble it back to him. But he's not throwing a ton of touchdowns either.
Yep.
And they were down a lot of offensive linemen, and it feels like Stroud was really just kind of playing over his head. to an extent, I guess, based on expectations. Now, I love CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
He was my QB1 in this class. And I feel like as he gets more games under his belt, I think he can take another step. But it feels like he might be a little more Jared Goff, I think, than, some of these guys that run a little bit.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I guess that's the question, right? Because NFL teams don't spend a second overall pick on a top 16 quarterback, right? They spend that draft capital on a quarterback that they truly think could be top 8 or a quarterback to lead them to a Super Bowl, right? Because if they thought that he had a super low ceiling, it's not like they're the 49ers, right? You put Brock Purdy in there and they look great. So I really do think that they at least view him as a future superstar. And honestly, he's really impressed me. And he was someone that I was kind of missing out on. But yes, Edward kind of asks it here. Would you say that Jared Goff is not a bust first overall pick, or would you still call him a bust at the first overall pick position?
I don't think he's a bust. I think, though, the expectation on a first overall pick is that they will elevate everybody. They'll elevate the offense. And I still don't know that Goff does that consistently. I think he does it. There are times when he'll throw the team from behind into a victory, but it isn't, we don't think of him, and he doesn't come off as a quarterback that wills his team to victory.
Yeah.
I love Jared Goff, and I read something a couple days ago. In his last 17 games, he's thrown for like 4,800 yards and close to 40 touchdowns. I think with Goff, there's certain things that he can do. And as long as you let him do that, and that's kind of why I compared Stroud to him, because there are things I don't think you want CJ Stroud. You don't want Stroud running like Josh Allen.
But that's kind of the great thing about that Georgia game last year is that he did show that he could run, that he's not limited.
I agree.
So I guess, and answering your first question, I think that he can really bring up an offense, but I think he can be multifaceted. My one critique about Goff is that he's not he's a fairly system-oriented quarterback, which isn't. I dislike the term system quarterback because every quarterback should be a system quarterback, and that system should be built around him. But there's been times that I've seen defenses counter what Jared Goff is strong at. You look at the Patriots-Rams Super Bowl game, for example. But he's in a different system now. But I think Stroud can be a quarterback that potentially has a little bit more tools in his tool bag that can start taking whatever the defense gives them. So overall, I'm really excited for him. And I think that, if both of them take a step forward from where they are now, we're talking about fairly elite dynasty assets. So it's exciting.
Do you think they can get to the Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins level? Matt Schaub or Andre Johnson? Can they take that big a step?
Oh, man. I could see more of this is more of a production profile,
right?
Not so much of a one-for-one comp, but like kind of a Russell Wilson, Tyler Lockett production, just very efficient touchdown numbers. I don't think Nico's going to be one of those top one. He'll never be wide receiver one in Dynasty. And clip and post that 2 years later when he's number one in Dynasty. But do you think that could be a thing, or what do you think about it?
No, I think that's a very lofty comparison. I think Nico's he's probably more of a wide receiver too. Somebody who will end up being in that range fairly consistently as long as CJ Stroud keeps playing like he is. And Stroud to me feels more like a QB 8 to 12, QB 6 to 12. 6 to 15 probably is the top and bottom, provided there's not an injury or something weird happens. I feel like he's got the talent that he can throw the ball, and he can throw it to multiple receivers. He's making good usage of Schultz, of Woods, of Tank Dell. They just need to get a running back that runs that San Francisco scheme. Somebody with maybe Dameon Pierce's size and juice and Devin Singletary's ability to actually run that offense. Take the best traits of both of those guys.
Isn't that such a frustrating thing, though? Is this whole offseason, I was like, I really like Dameon Pierce, but he really doesn't strike me as a Shanahan-style running back. I mean, maybe he could be kind of like an Alfred Morris.
Well, and Bobby Slowick actually came out last week, I think, and said as much that what he's struggling with is the wide zone scheme. He's not.
Yep.
He's you tell me what hole to hit, and I'm going to hit it with power and speed.
As much power, yeah.
As much power and speed as I have. But if you tell me, run sideways till you see a hole, I'm not so good there.
And then cut. Yeah, be able to cut. And so that he reminds me a lot of Brian Robinson. Kind of that same thing. You see Brian Robinson try to cut on an outside run. It looks like he's trying to do a roll.
Right.
So it doesn't quite fit. So I think Pierce could be a really good fit on another roster, but I don't think he's a very good fit on this one, and it makes me sad because I love Dameon Pierce, the player. But
so before we hop into Truth or Scare here, Peter, I want to tell you about Fantasy Alarm, the All-Pro subscription. Get the Fantasy Alarm All-Pro subscription and unlock all of the content for all sports, including the annual draft guides. I mean, we're talking baseball, basketball, and football, which we love. Get one-on-one access with experts in the Discord. I don't know. Did you see Britt Flynn's "Don't Stop Believing" song the other day?
No.
She was on with Howard Bender, and she did "Don't Stop Believing." It was a great fantasy football song.
Oh, that's
fantastic.
great.
You have to check it out.
Yeah.
League Sync and analyze your matchups and trends across all of your leagues. It's got a lineup generator with integrated fan injections from the Fantasy Alarm family. Daily and weekly rankings, value vault, position coaches, waiver wire, ownership percentages and projections for DFS. Get access to everything Fantasy Alarm offers all year. Go all pro now and save an extra $100 when you unlock all access all year. Use promo code LOCK at fantasyalarm.com/lock. All right, Peter, you ready for Truth or Scare?
Well, thanks for telling me all of that, Dennis. That means a lot. Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, so we've kind of been talking about a couple guys on the list already. So we'll start there with Jared Goff. He's currently QB5, QB6 in points per game. I just unsuccessfully tried to trade for him yesterday. Wasn't able to pull it off. I was offering. Let's see, what did I offer? I offered Dak and Mixon and a third-round pick for Nico Collins and Jared Goff. And that was a counter. The original offer was Nico for Deontay Johnson in a third, and I only have one quarterback this week, and so I was trying to get a second quarterback. So I was like trying to move Dak, who's on bye, and get back Jared Goff to go with Joe Burrow and Geno Smith.
Man, but side note, I'm so out on Deontay Johnson. I would trade him for any lateral trade I could get in that range. But
yeah, I still think there's a lot left in the tank. He's a good receiver. He's much more consistent.
Maybe for him, but that offense, man.
Yeah, I mean, Pickett.
I miss Big Ben. I miss Big Ben's retirement tour.
Yeah, so do I, because I have several shares of Najee Harris.
Isn't that crazy? I remember there were so many times I was watching that Steelers team play, and I'm like, just make it stop. I mean, please just punt. I don't care if it's second down, just make it stop. I want to see TJ Watt on the field, but I want it back. But
so back to
Jared Goff. Yep.
So they're going to be coming up on a contract extension.
Yep.
Teddy Bridgewater, Hendon Hooker behind him. He's 29 now, 28. He's getting up there.
Let's look that up. Oh, getting up there.
For a football player.
29. Not for a quarterback, though. When do you say a quarterback starts getting up there?
Depends on who the quarterback is. You know, we Cam Newton was out at 30. You know, Dante Culpepper. Matt Schaub.
Sure ain't Jared Goff, though.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
I think I'm of the mind that they're you know, if the way they're making this run this year, it feels like we're headed for a Joe Flacco type of contract extension, and that makes me nervous. I mean, even if they just have to win like one game in the playoffs, I think, for him to get that Flacco extension. It's been so long for us. Well,
my favorite thing is I even forgot that Hendon Hooker was a thing. Like, I forgot that they drafted. What round did they draft Hendon Hooker in? Was it the second?
No, I don't think it was that early. I think it was later than that.
I remember when people were like, you have to drop.
I like Hooker. I like his ability.
Third round. Okay.
I like his ability. I think he's 25 years old coming into the league. That was probably the biggest knock on him, that and the knee injury.
Yeah. Yeah, Hendon Hooker, I mean, he could be a stash, but yeah, with Jared Goff, I'm certainly not buying him right now because the sentiment is too high because he's getting Jameson Williams back. Amon-Ra St. Brown is currently, I would put him as my wide receiver 3 in Dynasty. He has Sam Laporta, which is my tight end 1 in Dynasty. And then you got Jamar Gibbs and a awesome offensive line and David Montgomery. Like, just the pieces around him are too good.
Right.
So I feel
he's like Brock Purdy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's kind of the same thing, right? But I feel like if there's a dip, I'm willing to. I'm not afraid of Goff at all. I think the Lions love him. He loves the Lions. It's going to be a long-term fit there. And as far as Dynasty goes, he's actually one of the most stable assets to me.
His play doesn't match his reputation. He's
no.
I get it that he does tend to play not quite as well on the road outside, but he some of that's balancing out as he's got more talent around him, and that certainly helps. And as the defense plays better, so things are coming together for him. I think he's the truth. I'm certainly not scared, but I could also see them being out in 3 years. So if they do sign him to an extension, I want him to be able to get out in 2 or 3 years without having $75 million in dead cap.
Yeah, that's less than optimal.
All right. So the other quarterback I have on the list is the aforementioned Brock Purdy, QB 10, QB 13 in points per game. Truth? or scared?
Man, I am slightly petrified of Brock Purdy. I'm kind of worried that we've already seen
There's nowhere to go but
his
down.
best. Yeah, I mean he's kind of the Dolphins offense right now. It's like, man, you guys aren't going to keep on scoring 70 points a game, So I don't know with CMC. How long is he going to be CMC for? I don't know. Maybe 2 years. Good old injuries started popping up. I know that it's only an oblique or whatever, and he's probably going to play. But you see that offense without CMC,
I
and it's
keep my
totally
obliques
different.
behind this insulation here, so my obliques don't get.
I know. What's their problem? Just eat some food.
You never hear an old lineman straining an oblique, do you?
No.
Yeah,
but
Purdy to me right now,
CMC is just so important to that.
He's a redraft guy. I'm with you. I'm scared of him long term in Dynasty. He has great weapons and he does execute that offense perfectly. Yep. But it feels like as things start to break down, whether it's McCaffrey getting hurt or Debo or Kittle, is he going to be able to maintain it? If he's throwing the ball to Charlie Warner and Juwan Jennings and handing it off to Jordan Mason.
Hey, Jordan Mason, I dropped a lot of fab on him in a couple leagues.
Well, I was fortunate. I didn't have any fab left to drop, so.
But yeah, I agree. I love him. And I think he'll be the long-term starter there. But I think he'll be better than Jimmy Garoppolo, but I don't know how much better.
Yeah, I think I agree with that statement. I think he's been having those 2 touchdown games, 3 touchdown games, and then he's just cooling off now. And I think that QB 13, QB 14, to me it feels like he's above. He's in the Derek Carr range. That mid QB 2 is where you're gonna see him more often. Will he have? I don't think he'll have the spike years that Matt Ryan had. Because I think Ryan was QB3 1 year.
Yeah, his MVP season.
Yeah.
But yeah, my question is he Derek Carr or Kirk Cousins? Because even the difference between there is it's starting to widen a little bit.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins was the quarterback 6 last year?
Yeah.
So, and a lot of it was because of the talent around him. I'm not sure how much Derek Carr can actually elevate an offense. That's, so I look at what's happening with the Saints right now. It's just a really weird offense to me right now. So I don't know if Derek Carr is going to bounce back, but the nice thing with Kirk Cousins and with Brock Purdy is that they're at least proven to be able to use really good pieces to produce in the offense. Ooh, Derek Carr. Josh, I know you love Derek Carr, so
yeah,
happy.
Being good at getting the ball to your good players is certainly a way to be relevant as a fantasy quarterback.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to
Taysom Hill. No offense.
So I got 3 running backs on the list: DeAndre Swift, Kyron Williams, and Zach Moss. Let's start with Zach Moss because he's got the weirdest situation, I think. Because he's looked phenomenal. He's RB5, RB4 in points per game.
This year is so weird.
And then Jonathan Taylor now comes back, and everyone's like, oh, and then Moss still put up great numbers last week. Do you think it's a chance to buy Moss because maybe he gets traded before the deadline? Or you think they'll just hold on to him now that Minshew's gone and they go to the wishbone or something?
Oh, well, yeah, that would be great. How long is his contract? Was it a 1 year or 2 year?
I think it was a 1 year.
Yeah. So to me, I mean, 4-year contract
for Moss?
with the Bills.
with the Bills.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
It just popped up for you. Yeah, 1 year. No, 2 year. Wait, was he on the Colts last year?
Yes.
Yeah, he was. He was traded to them.
Yep.
Yeah, so he has a 1 year contract. Yeah, I don't really see him being traded at all. If anything, I could see Jonathan Taylor being traded. And they're just trying to showcase Taylor right now that they have an extension with him.
I don't know. I don't think I feel like most
But-
teams aren't going to want to trade for that contract on a running back, even a running back named Jonathan Taylor.
Isn't that such a weird situation? Is that they sign him to that big contract, and he just doesn't look as obviously he's rusty and all that stuff. We saw the same thing with Josh Jacobs, but just having another running back performing better than Jonathan Taylor did last year on the team. It's just kind of a weird vibe right now over at the Colts. But right now, if I have him, if I have Zach Moss, I'm certainly not trying to get rid of him. Because no one's going to pay anything for him.
Right.
And yeah, if you can, would you send a late? I feel like an early third is an easy yes for him, right?
For Moss?
To give up for him?
I would buy him for that, I think.
Yeah. Would you buy him for a late second? That's Moss to the Packers.
No, I don't think I could bring myself to spend a second on him unless I was hearing credible rumblings that they were having talks or something. I don't know. It feels weird to spend a second round pick on a backup.
Zach Moss to the Packers is interesting. I think that did you see the one of the NFL rumors pages was saying this, so take it like it's from an NFL rumors page, but Derrick Henry is going to be shopped apparently by the Titans. I would love him on the Packers, man. That would be great on that old offense.
AJ Dillon isn't getting it done, so
man, what a miss, man. I don't know what happened to that guy, but anyway,
I don't know that we missed because when they drafted him in the second round, I think the fantasy community by and large was, oh, that's terrible. But then he flashed a little bit, and some of us,
we're back in.
We're like, oh, you got me. Let's take a look and see what we can get here. And it wasn't there. All right, so Kyren Williams. Let's move on to Kyren Williams. He's RB4, RB7 in points per game. He didn't go on IR, but he's expected to be out 2 or 3 weeks, right? He's week to week.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to be out until their bye, probably.
Yeah. And they don't want to put him on IR because that would be 5 weeks with the bye versus 4 weeks without it.
Yeah.
So I'm scared of Kyren Williams, and I've pounded the table on this all season that I'm not comfortable giving a 195-pound running back 20 carries a game.
Yep. Unless if his name's Devin Achane, and then
I'm not comfortable giving Devin Achane 20 carries a game. I mean, we went 2 games before he got landed on IR.
He just needs 10.
Huh?
Just give him 10 carries a game.
Yeah. That I think works. But my concern there is you're going to have these games where Achane's 10 carries don't give you 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. You're going to have several of those games where those 10 carries net you 41 yards and no touchdowns.
Yeah, so here's the thing with Williams for me, is he has really impressed me with how he has shown out, but I still view him as a 1 year option at running back.
William?
And and even with that though, I gave up a 2024 first for him in a team that I view as competing but I just needed running back depth. And I'm very confident that when he is on the field and he is the Rams RB1, he will be a top 12 running back. But what I'm worried about is you see these running backs every year that like they impress, like James Robinson, for example, has a great year, and then the next year just draft another running back with better physical tools, with a higher upside. And I think that's going to kind of happen. The same thing with Kyron Williams. And it's always hard to project, right? But it traded Burks and a 25-second for Kyron. I'm worried about Burks. That's the guy who scares me the most.
Yeah.
But
we'll hit some trades after the break at the top of that.
Good. But yeah, overall, so for me, now that he's going to be out with injury for so long, as like his use is it's kind of a ticking time bomb with me. So I am afraid of him. If I can recoup that first, I would, but I'm not anymore. So I'm holding him, but I wouldn't be actively trying to buy the dip, and I don't view him as a long-term dynasty asset.
So the only thing that gets me is that I don't know that Sean McVay and Les Snead will invest in running backs like Todd Gurley again. I think that I think we're going to continue to see them grabbing these third, fourth, fifth round guys and doing pretty much what Miami is doing. And we're going to get a bunch of guys that can do the same thing, and whichever ones are healthy, they're playing this week.
Yep.
That's
and
what it feels.
You saw it with Ronnie Rivers. All of a sudden, he's the starting running back, and oh wow, he's playing pretty good. So they know how to draft running backs for their system, unless if they're named as Darnell Henderson, I guess. But
they did re-sign him. Wouldn't surprise me if he's active this week.
Is he on practice squad or is he active?
No, they signed Gaskin to the active roster and Henderson to the practice squad.
Ronnie Rivers actually, when I remember cutting up his film a lot, and I was like, this guy has some juice. I like him a lot, but
again, he's another 195 pounder.
Yep. Is he?
I don't think he's very big. Devin A-Chain.
Great name though.
At 188 pounds. Yeah. I love watching him, but 5'9", 188.
So fun.
Teeny tiny.
Ron Rivers is 207, but that's 195 pounds. Well, right on the dot.
Yeah, I know my 195 pounders. Reminds me of the 7th grade. Back when I weighed 195 pounds. All right,
yeah,
so
I learned that pretty fast.
We're scared of. So it looks like we're scared of Moss, and we're scared of Kyron Williams.
Josh Henderson is not underrated. He's exactly just not rated at all. He's a practice squad player.
So, running back number 3, DeAndre Swift. RB7, RB12 in points per game. Where you at with him? Creep or scare?
This year it's truth. Long term scared. If I he's someone I would pay 2024 first for if if my whole team looks great and I just need an RB3 or just depth. But I'm still not sold on him as a long-term asset. I feel like I've said that multiple times, but overall,
is it talent?
I still have worries about him.
Talent, health, like what are your primary worries?
Yeah. So talent's always been there. Health, I think we've been blessed with
Looks like either I froze or Peter froze. So go to break. So we'll get Peter back on here. We'll head to break.
The Bears have to be one of the most inept franchises of any sport I've ever seen in my entire life. And they share the city with the White Sox, who are also inept. Like, that is how bad the Bears are. I just don't understand how you can go your entire existence and the quarterback that wins you a Super Bowl is Jim McMahon. You couldn't find anybody else.
They don't have a good history with quarterbacks, and they let him be the quarterback for a long time too.
Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes right there.
Mm-hmm.
And you drafted Mitch Trubisky. They were right there. I there's a lot of pain in being a Falcons fan. The Bears are one of the teams I could argue they might have it worse, and they have a Super Bowl.
And
when the best quarterback in the past 50 years is Jay Cutler, you have a problem.
That's so funny that you just said that. We were talking about Jay Cutler the other day, me and my friend, and I was like, yeah, he was on, because we were watching the Colorado Rockies game against the Giants, and it looked like he was behind the thing. I was, yeah, well, he played for Denver most of his career. We looked it up. Chicago let him be their starting quarterback way too long.
Like, here's the thing, too, is that Jay Cutler wasn't bad. Like, he was erratic. He wasn't terrible, though.
The poor man's Brett Favre.
I'm taking him over Justin Fields. I'm sorry.
I would.
But Jay Cutler led that team to an NFC title game.
Yeah.
That they lost to Green Bay. But he's gotten farther than anybody else. You want to know who the other starting quarterback was for the Bears in the other Super Bowl appearance they made? It was Rex Grossman. What are we doing out here? It was Rex Grossman, and Kyle Orton was the backup. How are you that bad? Bro, like, oh my God. Listen to the top 5. According to Football Reference, the top 5 greatest Bears quarterbacks of all time. Jay Cutler, number 1.
I can't believe it.
Sid Luckman, who last played in 1950, is number 2. Jim Harbaugh is number 3. Jim McMahon, the Super Bowl winner, is number 4, and he played there for 6 years. And Mitch Trubisky, is number 5 on the list as terms of passing yards go.
And we're all back.
I'm back. Better than ever.
Nervous because I have a long history of freezing, and so I'm like, is it me? Is it Peter? So
well, yeah,
we were closing out Swift.
Yeah. I needed to kind of have an internet crash just so I could find some reasons to be out on Swift. So I'm back. But talent's always been there. He reminds me a lot of Miles Sanders, ironically, with starts the season really hot, but is a terrible fantasy playoff running back because once they start getting just getting worn down, they don't level up like a Derrick Henry does. Yes, Josh, I'm back. Thank you for noticing. So there's just a couple things that it's really hard to be out on Swift when he's scoring like this, but we've also seen this before, right? So I've just kind of learned to not really change my opinion on Swift very fast because there's been times that we've been like, is this guy the RB1 in Dynasty? He looks great, even on the Lions, but it lasts about 4 games. And then he's just back to being DeAndre Swift. So that's where I'm at with him.
Yeah, I'm looking to have him as my RB2, 3 if I'm rostering him. I don't want him as my 1. I want somebody a little more consistent that stays a little bit healthier. But you're right. When he's on, he's dynamic, super dynamic. All right. So you ready to talk some trades, Peter?
Yes, please. I
was
like
scrolling back through
trades.
the comments to make sure I didn't miss any trades, and I saw Better Boss Sayers out there stashing hookers. So, all right. I think let's see, the first trade, Michael Anthony, he needed running back depth. Trade Burks in a 25-second for Kyron Williams.
Here, I am posting it to Twitter right now that we're answering trades. So could you give your thoughts on that really fast? And then I will.
Yeah. So for me, I was a week away from starting to try to acquire Treylon Burks, and then he was out again. And now I'm starting to wonder if, like, is it never gonna click for Treylon Burks? Now, Tannehill has been bad.
Yeah.
And Malik Willis has been badder. And I shudder to think what it'll look like when Will Levis gets in there.
Oh, don't you dare do that to me. Will Levis is going to be great. I just traded 2/3 and a fourth for him today. I felt great about it.
Well, they're
man.
using up your lottery tickets on a lottery ticket. I dig it.
He's going to be awesome, man.
Yeah, but Tannehill has just been so bad this year. And the offense in general hasn't been good. Tyjae Spears is outsnapping Derrick Henry because they're behind. It ends up just being, I'm okay to move Burks for Kyron, recognizing that theoretically wide receivers have a much longer runway than running backs. And Kyron Williams, after this year, is probably going to be relegated to, at best, a timeshare situation. So he'll be, RB, low end RB2, RB3, RB4 kind of guy. And that's okay if he helps me win this year. The draft pick, a second in 2025. Let's hope it's a late second. But yeah, I'm perfectly fine sending Burks in a second for Kyron. I would have preferred it if it was like after he comes back from being injured, but
I agree with you in there. Josh, answering your question really fast. Yeah, so each running back has various strengths and weaknesses that go with the system that they're running. So you look, for example, with outside zone, how that system is set up most of the time is when you're running outside, you're looking for the cutback hole or getting to the edge, right? So what that requires is really good acceleration and just really good agility, which is A-chain.
not Dameon Pierce's thing.
Yeah, it's not Dameon Pierce, but it's A-chain. But then you look at Derrick Henry and it's quarterback's under center and you hand him the ball and you say,
run to that spot.
Yeah, run to that spot. I don't care if someone's there. Don't try to find the, and that's where the physicality is. They can also use them on edge runs, getting out wide too. But so you look at each of these different schemes. You even look how Derrick Henry was used, I believe his first 2 years in the NFL, and they were trying to make him into a running back that he wasn't. He kind of like Dameon Pierce. And then they were like, okay, slow down. We have this really big dude who can run fast. Let's just have him run at people. So I think each system and each running back go together hand in hand. And that is actually super important. And that is why running backs like Zach Moss go from a system like Buffalo to a system like the Colts and all of a sudden start playing really well, is because they fit that system a lot better than the previous system that they came from. So
I don't know if you've been on the Fantasy Points data site, but they've got a ton of data. One of which is it breaks down the running backs versus zone, or running in zone and running in man. So to see like where are they successful. So in the zone concept, Dameon Pierce, 67% of his attempts have been in zone. He's been successful 33.8% of those attempts.
Okay.
33% of his attempts have been in man or, hit. There's the hole, go hit it.
Yep.
And 56% of those have been successful.
Yep.
So it tells you, like,
There you go.
That's what he does. I was going to see if I could find Devin A-Chain here real quick. I might have sorted him out when I changed the.
Yeah, while you're searching for that. But Josh, I think one of the best things you can do to level up your fantasy scouting is just kind of getting a good understanding of each system and the strengths and weaknesses that you need to have for each system, because that's why Rich was so excited when A-Chain got drafted to the Dolphins. But let's say if he was drafted to, I don't know, the Giants or something like that, it would be like, okay, we'll see what he does. But just different systems need different things. And that's going to be higher or low.
A-Chain would be successful in Houston. He'd be successful in San Francisco because they're all running that same wide zone.
49ers, yeah.
All right. Let me pull up the other.
Man, that was a fun conversation. I love that. Thanks for asking that, Josh.
All right. So off of Twitter here, we got Matt Boehm. He acquired Saquon, CeeDee Lamb, Nico Collins, and Sam Howell. This is a big trade for Lamar Jackson, DeAndre Swift, James Cook, and Dalton Kincaid.
Man, okay. I'm pulling that up right now.
Feels like that might be a redraft trade.
Yeah, let's see where it is. Who posted that? Okay.
I just scrolled to the bottom thinking that was the first one. Saquon, CeeDee, Nico.
We're getting dead air.
Huh?
We're getting dead air. Who posted it?
Matt Boehm, B-A-M-E.
Okay. Oh, there he is. Okay. Saquon, CeeDee, Nico, and Howell for Lamar, Swift, Jay Cook, and Kincaid. Let's treat it like it is Dynasty, though.
So I still want Lamar over Howell.
Close, though.
Lamar's definitely playing down to the competition here.
Yep.
CeeDee, it does. There's nobody else on the other side that compares to CeeDee Lamb. Saquon, how are we feeling about Saquon? Is it just because the Giants are bad in general?
I am fully out on Saquon this year. Obviously, I'm not dropping him, but high ankle sprains are. You talk to people who have them, and they say that they wish they broke their leg. I mean, they're extremely painful. It's taken him a while to recover from it. And Kirk, he's had one before, right?
Yeah, I think he had one a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and same thing. His production, even when he's on the field, when he came back, was terrible. So I'm certainly trying to not trade for him right now. But he'll be a top 24 running back, but I don't know how close he'll be to the 24 as opposed to the 10.
So what are your thoughts on James Cook? You in on him?
Man, you asked me in the first 3 weeks, I would be. But
imagine that 6 weeks into the season and 195-pound running back isn't getting a bunch of touches anymore.
Yeah, I mean, that whole Bills offense looks weird right now, and you could say maybe it's because Kincaid's gone, but I still think that they don't quite have an identity yet as an offense. A lot of time, there were some games that like Josh Allen was doing a really good job being a point guard instead of just this crazy freelancing player. But I feel like as teams kind of changed to counter that, they don't quite have an answer yet. And I don't know if James Cook is the answer. So he'll be a top 24 running back too, but kind of the same thing. I don't want him in my starting lineup right now if I can help it.
Yeah, he's a flex guy for me.
Yep.
So we talked about Nico earlier. So that being said, what side of this trade you coming down on?
I am
Saquon,
gonna
Amy,
go.
Howell, Lamar, Cook, Swift.
Oh man, I wish this was tied in if I knew this was tied in premium or not. But I am going to go. Where are you going to go?
I'm going the Lamar side. I get that the other side's
yeah.
getting the best player in CD Lamb. But like you said, Barkley's going to be playing through a high ankle sprain on an ineffective offense. And you've got two RB2s, Lamar Jackson, and a
Yeah, because if you told me that if James Cook outproduced Barkley this year, I would totally believe that. So I kind of view them almost the same, which is weird to say. And then Swift, I like Swift a lot. Lamar is great. Kincaid is a high upside player, so love it. Ooh, Michael had a great trade in the chat. Antonio Gibson for Jaden Reed in a league he's not competing. I don't care if you are competing. I would still make that trade 10 out of 10 times. I love it.
So I'm confused at which side you love because of your Commanders fandom.
Oh, I try to not. It's hard to tell with my Dotson love.
Okay, just making sure. I like the Reed side too. I think Reed is going to be. He has the potential to be sort of a Hunter Renfrow plus receiver. Mm-hmm. He could be that with if you got Watson, Dobbs, and Reed. I think that's a nice trio of receivers. Yeah. We just got to get Jordan Love's completion percentage above 60%.
Nah, you just need to throw more passes.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, I love it because you're trading a descending player for an ascending player, no matter what.
I mean, Ron Rivera is getting out of the Antonio Gibson business. We should get out of the Antonio Gibson business as well. Yep. All right. Next trade from Twitter. Cooper McCutcheon. This one I liked.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry, James Conner, and a 24 4th for Chuba Hubbard, Jalen Warren, and Jaleel McLaughlin.
Man, that's such a trade that if you have a good team that is able to go 500 while James Conner is out, even when James Conner, like you have Derrick Henry, I love that. Josh Gibson, do you exist on this chat to poke fun at me? Gibson is not greater than Robinson. Gibson can't hold the ball in the red zone. He fumbles it so much. But anyway, but yeah, Derrick Henry alone is worth that times 10.
I agree. It's clearly a one team's contending and one team is rebuilding. But if you're rebuilding, why are you trading for 3 backup running backs? Now, Hubbard may be the starter within the next 14 days. McLaughlin has looked great. And it seems to be pushing Javonte out of the way. And Jalen Warren, everybody loves, but again, another 195-pound back and he doesn't have great athleticism.
It's pretty much everyone on the right is 195, right? And then the good old beef boys.
210.
Okay.
But McLaughlin is a little guy. He's like 5'9", 190, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, he played at Youngstown State.
Oh yes, of course.
Go Fighting Penguins.
My college's mascot was penguins.
Yeah, that's what Youngstown State's mascot is the Penguins.
Oh man. Brothers.
There's a lot of risk with Henry and Connor.
But not nearly as much as those other guys.
Well, it's different kind of risk. It's old, running out of gas, falling apart risk versus never going to amount to anything risk.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is in theory, you're trading a descending asset for an ascending asset, but it's like it's still not going to hit that value.
Right.
So
Yeah.
awesome.
I think that they would all have to give us at least an RB2 season to make it
Yeah.
worth its while.
Yeah.
All right. So Mason Murphy then gives us CD Lamb for a 24 first, a 24 second, and Marvin Mims.
If that's anything other than a top 3 pick in the 2024 first round, I love that trade.
For the guy that got Lamb?
Yeah. Sorry. I need to start being more specific.
And that, for all the good stuff Sleeper has done, the fact that they don't let you see where those picks are projected to be, that's what I love about Flea Flicker. Yeah, I know, I get it. It's week 6 and it's probably not going to be the 107, but at least I have an idea.
But if it's the 103 or the 102, it's a good reference point, right?
Right. Yep, I agree. Yeah, I'm taking the CD Lamb side there.
Yeah.
All right. Next
Josh, metric-wise, there is a fairly large difference between running backs under 200 pounds and running backs over 200 pounds. Obviously, a lot of it does go with size too. Like having a 5'8" running back who's 195 versus a 5'12". 5'12" would be 6 foot, wouldn't it? Running back that's 205. But for the most part, it's hard, like, because you have Jamar Gibbs, for example. He's 199 pounds, so that's pretty close to 205. But he looks pretty small out there still to me. It doesn't help that he's playing next to Montgomery, he's 225, isn't he?
He's like 225, 230.
Yeah, so he looks small, but size really does matter in this scenario.
All right, next trade. We'll do one more trade here from Twitter. So we got Kenneth Walker for Curtis Samuel, Jerome Ford, and a 24 first. And Curtis Samuel's playing great, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's terrible for Jahan Dotson, but
he was always extremely talented. That was one of my biggest issues with last year is they try to make him into almost like a JD McKissick replacement, where they would put him in the backfield and just kind of very short yardage stuff. But he is a good wide receiver. And once they started sending him down the field, running routes and catching actual passes and not like jet sweeps and stuff, he's very good. So I'm still, unless if this is like a top 6 pick, I'm going Kenneth Walker here.
yeah, I mean, I could see Ford being relevant next year, depending on how Nick Chubb comes back. Chubb's not young for a running back. And
how old is he? 27?
I think he's 27. And
he is 27. Will be 28 when he comes back, though.
Yeah. So, and that's, he tore that knee up in college. I think it's reasonable to expect him to not look the same.
Yeah.
Samuel, I don't know what the runway is on that. He's had some good seasons, but he hasn't been. It doesn't feel like he's been consistent year over year. Some of that's been injuries, and so yeah, I think I like the Walker side of it as well.
Yeah. You look at how Samuel has been producing, and it's not in long-term ways, if that makes sense. Like he's not getting a lot of volume. He's dynamic, but we've also seen him just kind of catch the ball and then get tackled. So it's going to be a hard thing to project. I'm still holding on as hard as I can to Dotson. I hate how close his name is to Josh Doxson. But the talent's still there. He's still getting open, but I still don't know what to think about that Bieniemy offense. But so I think that Samuel will be a wide receiver 3 with upside.
Yeah. Josh posted another trade, so we'll get this out of the chat here. Rachaad White and
Anything for
Amari
Josh.
Cooper, or 24-second and Quentin Johnston.
So Rachaad White equals 2024 second, correct?
Depends. I mean, Johnston's not been playing great.
But I'm saying I'm just taking it apart. So like Rachaad White is greater than 2024 second, would you say, if you need a running back?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't in on Rachaad White. He wasn't very efficient last year, and I'm not a Baker believer. He hasn't been efficient this year. I mean, hell, Keyshawn Vaughn is taking snaps, and that's not great for my Sean Tucker shares. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have one mission this year: get Mike Evans 1,000 yards.
Yep,
that's what it seems like when you watch him. But if I'm competing, I want Amari Cooper.
100%.
And White becomes a flex-worthy running back for me.
Yep.
Quentin Johnston isn't doing it, and so it feels like there's a lot of risk on the Quentin Johnston second-round pick side. You know what the risk is on the other side. It's that White is just a guy, and Amari Cooper is just old.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at too. Is Rachaad and a 2024 second is very close to me. I might lean a 2024 second still, but it's close, right? But the difference between Amari Cooper and Johnston is huge. Even let's say best case scenario, back to my Nico Collins comp, is I don't want to wait 3 years to wait for him to produce maybe. So I want the production now. Cooper's extremely good. He can produce with almost anyone. Not what's his name? Why am I blanking on the name? UCLA. Yep. But he just needs PJ Walker and Deshaun Watson whenever he starts feeling better.
Yep. So let's talk about our friends at Fantasy Alarm again. So unlock all of the great content at Fantasy Alarm for all sports, including the annual draft guides, with the Fantasy Alarm All Pro subscription. Not the rookie subscription, not the minor league subscription, the All Pro subscription. Get one-on-one expert access in their exclusive Discord. League sync, analyze matchups and trends in your leagues. Build better lineups guaranteed in DFS. Daily, weekly rankings, value vault, position coaches, all of that great stuff. And you get it for the entire year. Go all pro and save an extra $100 when you unlock access for the entire year. Use code LOCK at fantasyalarm.com/lock. Fantasy Alarm, all pro subscription. Be there now. All right, Peter. Before we jump into backfield quagmires.
Yep. My favorite.
Did you want to have any last words on the trades?
Just one last thing with Josh. Even if you're not competing, you should be able to get your value back with both of those guys, right? I think sometimes I find myself falling into the idea of like, I can't trade for these old guys, even though I can get them at a value right now because I'm rebuilding. But in reality, Amari Cooper is 29.
I
Right.
think so.
So it's not like it's a one and you're not trading for Adam Thielen in this scenario. So there should be a team in the next couple weeks that needs depth, right? And when that's happening, you can just flip Cooper right there. But the other thing is Cooper will still have at least 1 to 2 years more of value. And when you're rebuilding, you should still be trying to get players on your team that'll help you when you are, and you want to be competing between like max 2 years, unless if you have a really bad team. Like one of our leagues together have a really bad team, and it's going to take about 3 years for me to compete. But yeah, so don't be afraid to trade for older players when it's a good value like that, because Johnston's not going to hold the value. I don't think.
Yeah, I agree. I'm nervous about my Johnston shares.
How much do you have?
We just saw here, if you're a WNBA fan, the Las Vegas Aces beat the New York Liberty in a nail biter. I didn't say that to be sexist. It was just a really close game. 70-69. The Aces win back-to-back WNBA championships. Go Las Vegas Aces.
Congratulations to the Waller family.
Yeah.
Hopefully he was.
Hopefully he was there getting,
Yeah.
taking in victory.
Thanks, McDaniels.
Not getting a heck of a lot of that in New York.
Yep. Yeah, that
So.
kind of has to be awkward.
What's that?
Well, she's on the best team in her league, and
Right.
he's like on the worst team in his league. So I wonder if that comes up.
Yeah, that's rough. It's like my house. My wife is on the best team, and I'm the worst team.
Hey, wait, we're a good team over here at Dynasty Nerds.
Oh, I wasn't referring to you and them.
Okay.
Just the internal workings. All right, so running back quagmires. Let's start off with the Rams. We've talked a little bit of the Rams. Kyron Williams, he's listed as week to week. It feels like that he's going to be out 2 to 3 weeks. Then they have a bye in week 4, so they didn't put him on IR. They did, however, put Ronnie Rivers on IR, so he's going to be out the next 5 weeks. Their options, Zach Evans, whom they actually let touch the ball last week because they just ran out of people. Royce Freeman, who's been bouncing around their practice squad. I think he might have been active a time or two. They signed Myles Gaskin off the Minnesota practice squad to the active roster and brought back a goodie but oldie, Darrell Henderson. While Kyron Williams is out, are you looking at any of these guys thinking, they may help me win? Or maybe I can pick one up and turn them for a third-round pick? Or is it going to be Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua?
Oh, man. Yes. But there's only one just obvious name right now, and that's Zach Evans, right? Right. That if he is able to show anything, everyone's going to be back in. This guy had it in high school. He looked great when he was at TCU and then Ole Miss. He was given multiple chances to be the guy, and he just wasn't. And so I'm kind of worried about that, right? Is in every chance he had, he didn't deliver in the lower levels. So I don't really know if he'll deliver now. If I had to bet, probably I'm going Gaskin for the most points. But I don't know. It kills me. If I am starting any of these players, I have no hope, right? So if I want to roster one, it's Zach Evans because he's the youngest one and he, in theory, has the most tools and just the traits that you want. But
so we've seen running backs though with that kind of didn't overtake and completely dominate the job in college, be effective in the NFL. Case in point, last season's Dameon Pierce. I think his rushing yards high in college was only like 650 yards or something. He never really dominated in Florida.
But he was PFF's like number 1 rated running back that year. So like in the limited opportunities that he had, he showed out. But it was kind of this flip with Evans, right? Is he came in onto a running team, and then Judkins. So Kendra Miller,
our recruit, pushed him off the team.
Yeah, I mean, it's like there were running backs, like Pierce was still the RB1 on his team. But Zach Evans multiple times was brought in to be the RB1, and other people took over. So when you're betting against a Myles Gaskin or a Royce Freeman, though, I feel like your chances are a lot better than like a Judkins or Kendra Miller, but it's still something to think about.
Yeah, for me, Evans is really the only one. If I've got a team like, let's say, my DO Degenerates League that I'm in with Josh, where I did a productive struggle, and I'm just trying to get a running back that's at least going to play.
Yeah.
While I'm waiting to cash in my 24 and 25 first round picks, yeah, I could see grabbing Royce Freeman. I feel like Freeman does some things decent. He's good at pass protection. He can catch the ball. He's not a dynamic runner. He had a really nice college career, caught a lot of passes, ran for a lot of yards, but it just didn't translate into the NFL. Gaskin was the same. I think Gaskin actually succeeded Freeman, or Freeman succeeded Gaskin at Washington. They were like back to back, and then both of them.
I think
lots
Freeman
of touches.
played
Freeman
Oregon.
was at Oregon. That's right. Gaskin was at Washington. But Gaskin, again, the same thing, a 4-year career, lots of touches, good pass receiver. I'd be a little concerned with whether or not Gaskin picks up the offense because he hasn't been there. Freeman's been around the team now for a year. That's why Henderson might get a game day boost. But Gaskin, I think, will play special teams as well. So there's something.
Yeah.
It's a quagmire until Kyron Williams gets back. It's a quagmire. Probably best to avoid.
But don't tell Josh this. But if Henderson does get elevated, he will be the best running back on that team. Because he knows that system perfectly, and he'll play well. And that's who I would. If he gets elevated, that's who I would put my money on scoring the most points.
And wouldn't that be crazy to just be out of the league, signed on Monday, start on Sunday?
Well, it's kind of like Sony Michel did like 2 years ago, right, on the Rams. And he just gets signed off the street and puts up a couple really nice performances.
All right, on to quagmire number 2. This one's a good one. The Arizona Cardinals. So James Conner was having a fantastic year. Great. Now he's on IR. Everybody was like, get yourself some Emari DeMarcado. That's the guy you want. They had Keontae Ingram, who hasn't shown a ton. He's been injured a lot, hasn't shown a lot in his time with the Cardinals. Damian Williams on the practice squad. They've signed Tony Jones. They released him actually just today or yesterday. They have Corey Clement on the practice squad as well. So Clement's been with the Cardinals for a couple years now. Williams is new, but Williams was signed, and I think he had the most touches last week, or one less touch than Ingram.
Yeah.
Connor is going to be out for 3 more weeks. Why were we so hot on DeMarcado?
Well, the big thing with him is he's the best pass catcher in the group, right? So in theory, Dobbs is a veteran quarterback. Veteran quarterbacks like to check down. They need to be passing a lot because they'll be down. I don't know. Honestly, he looked pretty good in his first start.
I mean,
And Ingram just hasn't looked good.
so DeMarcado actually played the most snaps of the running backs last week.
Yeah.
He just got the fewest touches.
Yeah, that's what you want, right?
I think I'm of the belief that DeMarcado gets more touches this week.
Mm-hmm.
He compares very favorably athletically to Aaron Jones. Like,
Ooh.
right, like within like 0.3 on the Kentley Platt relative athletic score profile. Very, very
Really?
close athletically.
But how much does he weigh?
He's over 200. He's
Okay.
like literally
He's great
almost
then.
the same exact size as Aaron Jones.
That's going to be like my first question with any running back whenever it comes up is like, how much does he weigh though?
He weighs 199.999.
I'm out.
Hold on, let me give him this drink of water and step back on the scale.
But yeah, I'm still going DeMarcado out of all these options. I think he still offers the highest upside and the most well-rounded skill set. I think it was just it's not going to be pretty. I think a lot of these running back rooms it's all going to be spread out. It's not just going to be a Zach Moss situation everywhere.
So they activated Kyler Murray's 21-day window to return from IR.
Yep.
They going to bring him back, or are they going to get the 3 weeks out of the way and then just say, we're going to keep you out the rest of the year because now we're 1-8, 1-9.
Oh man, I think they realize that they're good enough to not be the first overall pick, right? And I don't know how front offices think. So it's just kind of grasping at straws in that situations.
Don't let that get out in the Dynasty community because we all think we know how they think.
Yeah, that's true. But if I'm the coach right now, and if Kyler Murray's my franchise quarterback, I want to give him get him as many reps as possible in the new offense. So best case scenario is if he gets like 7 games of this offense, and then it goes into next year with that continuity, and when you actually want to win.
The word you're looking for is momentum.
Not continuity?
No, that's a word too.
It is a word, but
they want to get momentum.
But they want momentum, yeah. But like momentum, they're probably going to lose a lot too, right? So like at least the year that you want to win, you don't have a quarterback learning a new system. So I think he'll still play, and I think he'll be good. I don't know. It's a big year. I thought he wasn't going to play, but he's been progressing. And once they activated him, I don't think they're going to like activate him and then bring him back down again. And the rest of the Cardinals team has looked pretty good. So
yeah, Michael Wilson's come on. Hollywood Brown's doing well. The tight ends are doing great.
Yep.
I mean, they have some weapons. I mean, Rondale Moore's flashed a little bit, pun intended.
He might be the running back to own, honestly.
Right. Now, what do you think? How much longer do you think Connor has? Like, if you're a dynasty manager, are you hoping Connor gets back, looks good, and you can just dump him for a second?
Yeah, I mean,
because he did look great early in the year.
So he looked great, and he usually does, right? When he's fully healthy. But the problem is he's usually not fully healthy. I don't think he's going to come back as good as he was at the beginning of the year. So if you can trade him at close to value, like if you can would you trade him for Jerome Ford? As a
I don't think I would.
You'd keep Connor?
Yeah, because depends on I guess it would depend on the status of my team. My
You need an
concern is that
RB3.
Nick Chubb is an alien and will be back next year as good as ever.
Yeah.
And Jerome Ford is not able to hold off Kareem Hunt. Hunt is still, splitting time fairly equally with Ford. After the Browns literally told Hunt all offseason, no, man, no, we're good. We're good. We're fine. Keep moving. Nothing to see here. Get going.
Good luck finding another place. Psych. We actually do need you.
So Ford has looked decent. I guess I would have thought he'd look better behind that offensive line. He hasn't produced like I had hoped he would. And then you get Kareem Hunt coming in, and Hunt's breaking off long runs. I know Ford has had some moments, but it hasn't felt as consistently highly productive as I would have wanted out of him.
And it's hard too because that offense has been playing without their franchise quarterback for a couple weeks and all that stuff. But yeah, I agree. I wanted a little bit more from him, but I actually kind of leaned that I would. If I need production now, I'm fine with trading James Conner for Ford. But as far as I don't think the Cardinals are going to draft a running back highly next year. There's just too many holes. So I can see Connor being the starter next year, but after that, I don't really see a world where he's fantasy relevant.
Yeah, he certainly feels like a guy that you want on a competing team, preferably as your RB2.
Yeah.
Because
or
he'll put
flex.
up some good RB1 days.
Yeah.
All right, quagmire number 3. And this one could get ugly. The Chicago Bears. So Justin Fields is probably their RB1. They just refuse to use him like that. And then he dislocates his thumb, pops it back in, tries to go back in the game. We got Khalil Herbert, who was my guy all offseason. I love Khalil Herbert. And he looked great. And then he's on IR.
How much does he weigh?
I think he's one of those 205-pound guys.
Really? I thought he was under.
No, he's a little bigger than I think you think he is. Not a lot, but little. Roshan Johnson. Out with a concussion.
212. Man.
Out with a concussion. Did not participate in practice yesterday or today. Yeah. Herbert's with his explosiveness, it's just he's a bowling ball of fun. 5'9", 212.
Yeah.
So Roshan's out. I was disappointed in the production of Deontay Foreman last week. I thought he would, after finally being activated and getting the ball, he had an okay. I guess his day would have been a lot better if Tyson Badgett hadn't vultured the touchdown.
Well, yeah, like how many times? But yeah, how many times have we seen this pretty much exact script write itself with Deontay Foreman? Just the starting running back gets hurt, and then we have Deontay Foreman on our team. Let's use him, and then he's like little Derrick Henry. So I was expecting a little bit more, and I think I like him a lot, even with Johnson back. In theory, hopefully this week. Although I am concerned with him still showing concussion symptoms this far in. I'm not a doctor, but still, it's doesn't seem like it's a common thing. Roshan and Herbert equals Montgomery and Gibbs. I could see that. Except I would almost say Herbert is equal to Montgomery and Roshan is Gibbs. Yeah. So, and yeah, I would say that Herbert, Foreman and Roshan is Montgomery and Gibbs in this scenario, right? So I think they can both coexist. Roshan's going to be catching more of the passes. Foreman's getting the goal line work. If both are active, and let's say if I'm doing like a DFS lineup, I would want to be doing Foreman instead of Roshan right now.
So Roshan, it's Wednesday. He didn't practice because of the concussion. So let's say he's out. It's Foreman. Travis Homer returned to practice today. So he should be good to go. They liked him as a pass catcher. That's why they brought him in. And then they've got they signed Darrington Evans.
Yeah.
So who I'm not expecting much out of Darrington Evans. Where I would go with the Foreman Homer combo, because Tyson Bagent threw the ball a lot in college, and so I feel like he can make the passing game productive if he's protected. And if the passing game can be productive, I think Foreman can have another good game. 15 for 65 is a decently effective day. I'd certainly love 20 for 90, but he only had one target. He caught his one pass for 2 yards. But Foreman is a pray for a TD guy if they're not going to throw him the ball.
Yeah, and he's a really good positive game script kind of guy too. But
Right.
I don't think the Bears are going to be leading all that much. So I guess, that Foreman's the floor, Foreman, and Johnson is the ceiling because he could be catching a lot of passes and he's the more dynamic player.
Yeah, I think he'll siphon off some rush attempts as well.
Yeah.
Because of that. All right. These next couple quagmires are mostly a result of injuries because they're good teams.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the 49ers. So Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason, or JP, I forget. That's what the announcers call him, JP Mason.
Really?
Terrion Davis-Price, and then they have Jeremy McNichols on their practice squad. This one is a little less of a concern, at least according to Kyle Shanahan. The oblique muscle isn't really that much of a concern, and so CMC should play this week. That being said, do you believe Kyle Shanahan?
Oh man, it's hard to say, isn't it? I really, if CMC doesn't play, I actually really like Jordan Mason. So I'm kind of diverting the question a bit, but I think that CMC plays. They play on Monday, and it's not a previous injury. Like if it was a hamstring when he had a hamstring injury in the offseason, something like that, I would be more worried. But I think that CMC plays. But if he doesn't, I actually really like Jordan Mason. I just got Jordan Mason in our Nerds Get Back League for $60 fab, 50. So there's that. And I picked up Mecole Hardman for $60 fab.
Got the homecoming going on.
Yep.
I'm not picking up anybody in that league because I'm going for the 101.
Hey, look at you. But could I make a quick side note really fast? Mecole Hardman on the Chiefs. Any interest?
Yeah, I think so. But then again, they didn't think enough of him to keep him over the guys they have.
But they realized that they need it's the Kareem Hunt situation, right?
Maybe.
They're like,
Rashee
we're
Rice
good.
has come on. I like what Rice is doing. I really expected more from Sky Moore. Kadarius Toney is giving me exactly what I expected. And but Rice is starting to be productive. Honestly, I think the passing game and the Chiefs issues in general are because Patrick Mahomes thinks he can just keep pulling a rabbit out of his hat.
Yeah.
And I get it. He makes plays out of structure, but it's almost like they'll run a route and they're open, and he's like, "No, I'm going to run around for a little bit. Let's just see what happens. I'm going to do something cool." It's starting to feel like that. And because it works out a lot, he doesn't get a lot of flack for it, but it feels like he's taking the approach. There's an old business book called "If Something Isn't Broke, Break It," or something to that effect, so you can make it better. It was the theory, and it feels like he's doing that with every play they call. He's trying to break it so he can make something better. And at some point, that when you're paying some top-heavy salaries and you end up with a bunch of dollar store receivers and running backs, I think it starts to catch up with you. And I think that we're kind of seeing that with Kansas City.
Yeah. Would Jerry Jeudy excel in the Chiefs? I would say that Jerry Jeudy and Rashid Rice are actually fairly comparable play styles. So I would want Rice in that situation.
Honestly, at cost, I would want Rice.
But that's the kind of thing with Hardman, though, is I would say that MVS is MVS, and he isn't anything more. So they need a deep threat. Hardman has had his games, and it was a best ball league that I spent 60 fab on. So it's kind of nice to have that on a best ball league. But I don't think he'll be consistent, but he'll offer that stretch in the field that I don't think anyone else really does. Maybe they thought Tony would potentially. I don't know what they were thinking about Tony. But yeah, overall, I think Hardman adds. He might be the best. True or false? He's the best wide receiver on that team right now.
I think it's Rashee Rice.
Okay.
The thing with Rice coming out was, he's 5'11" and 200 pounds, and he plays like he's built like Quentin Johnston at 6'4", 220. And Quentin Johnston at 6'4", 220 plays like he's 5'11" and 200 pounds.
Yeah. No, he just looked like Rice in college looked like if he finds a good system, and a system that knows how to use his strengths and kind of refines them, then he'll be great.
Yeah, I think I felt that Sky Moore was going to be the guy, and for whatever reason, it's not clicking. Moore is a good route runner coming out of college, and I felt like being a year in the system, and maybe that's where I'm getting my Mahomes just isn't pulling the trigger on those wide receiver plays. He's trying to go for something big, and then Moore being the first or second read ends up just being left behind because Mahomes he's looking for Kelsey, or he's running around and then looking for Kelsey. Kelsey's the first read. I mean, that's not what I'm not saying he's not, but let's see. Devin Brown wants to know Najee Harris or Alexander Madison.
Oh, give me Najee. I'm still not fully out on Harris. I'm pretty out on Madison long term and short term.
So coming back from the bye, do you think anything changes in the offense? It looks like they're getting ready to get Deontay Johnson back. I know you're out on him.
I'm not out on him as the player though, by the way. I think they have to, right? Because you look at Harris's metrics, and I feel like Harris is kind of the Kyle Pitts of running backs, where it's like, oh, if you look at the air yards, he should be tight end 1. And it's like, well, he's not. He's tight end 28. So your metrics are stupid. But you look at his metrics and numbers and stuff. He isn't playing bad, but the line is, and just everything around him. And so the hope is that with that bye, the offensive line gets better. There's more understanding of the run game. So I think that he still can step up. Hopefully they use him in the passing game more. That's something that I still don't understand, is why they don't do that. But
Do you think Pickett's the problem?
yeah, maybe. I need to see the Kirk Cousins ceiling, but he looks an awful lot like Trubisky out there, which I hate saying. I really liked him coming out of college, but
If you listen to the last break, Trubisky's the 5th best quarterback in Chicago Bears history.
hey, that's pretty good. Yeah, I love that. I love that rant.
So Najee is a big running back that needs volume.
Yep.
And they're not giving it to him. It's like if you're giving him 14 carries, he's going to give you 14 for 60, 14 for 55, and it's not going to look great. But you give him 22 carries, and now you're looking at 22 for 110 because he's kind of wearing those defenders down. I agree with you. I'm not out on Najee. I think the offense in general isn't playing great. Pickens is making some great plays, but when he's catching 4 out of 10 targets, it's not super efficient either.
Mm-mm.
All right. So quick question. We'll close out with this.
Yeah.
How do you know if you're rebuilding?
If you're middle of the table, I feel like that's it's a lot easier. If you're mid-table, you're not one piece away. If that makes sense. Warren's not better, Josh.
I don't think
He
so
will
either.
never be. Don't listen to them. Okay, Heavy T's giving us an extra 2 minutes. So let's talk about this more. What, in your opinion, how do you know when you're rebuilding?
So I take the 2 main things I consider are, is my team scoring points, and do I have injury issues? So if I'm the 6th seed and I'm 2nd or 3rd in points, I've just caught everybody's best game, then I'm not rebuilding, I'm competing. If I'm 3rd seed and I'm 8th in points and I'm getting everybody's worst game, that's when I start to look at about week 6, and I'll start to say, okay, who's at 4, 5, and 6 I can start to feed players to.
Yeah.
And because they've got, I think a lot of times when we make the decision to go into rebuild, we make it in preseason. And then we try to make deals, and nobody wants to make a deal because they're like, oh, my team is, I'm going to be competing. I don't need this, or I don't need that, or I don't want to give up picks because I don't think I'm going to be good. Well, wait till week 5, 6, 7 and see how the league is playing out, and who's scoring points and who's not. And if you've got somebody that's a couple slots behind you, but you still qualify, I mean, I've looked at 7th and 8th place teams that have a decent team, and I'm at 5th place, and I'll start to trade them good players. I'm like, oh, look, your team looks pretty good. My team, I've got some work to do. I'm going into rebuild. And to me, it's all about points scored and is my team healthy?
Yeah, and that's what I mean too. It's like middle of the road is if your team's healthy and you're just middle everything, it's at least time to reload, right? You need those young prospects to really launch your team into next year.
Yeah, I've got, unfortunately this year I have way too many rebuilding teams. But it is what it is. That's part of the process. You draft, you win, you lose, you rebuild, you win, you lose, you rebuild.
And it's what we love.
Yeah.
That's why we do what we do.
That's why, I think I'm Les Snead. It's been great having you on, Peter.
So fun.
Thanks for spending the whole 2 hours with me. I'm
So
Dennis
fun.
Bennett at Culture Coach on Twitter at Pete Bartausky. We'll see you next week.